People's Business is made possible by our partners, Solar Dynamics, the most efficient energy systems.
Good evening and welcome to the People's Business. This evening we'll be having a one-on-one which you, the audience, can also tune in on, because we're going to be discussing how we're putting a handle on local crime, a discussion on the many issues. To discuss with me is the Honorable Corey Lane, Minister of State in the Office of the Attorney General with special responsibility for crime prevention. Good evening and welcome to you, Mr. Lane.
Hi, good evening, Wendy, and good evening, Barbados.
Right. And as I said, it's the minister and myself, so we are depending on you, the public, to also weigh in and have your views aired. 228-5562, 228-5563. We'll be back after the break. And let's get straight to it. Are we indeed putting that handle on local crime? Are we tackling the situation, Minister Lane? First off, is the peace truce really a truce? Is there truth in the truce?
I think the proof of the pudding is really in the eating. I've really, in communicating with many Barbadians, realizing that there's definitely an ease in people moving around. We've seen a lot of communities actually mixing. I had a few sports tournaments over the last bank holiday and over Easter with road tennis, basketball, and soccer-ramas, and things that you will not have seen before. People from all areas, all walks of life coming out and really enjoying community once again and enjoying sports again. I think there's an ease definitely in relation to our local crime situation.
Okay, so that means
in short,
then,
there's truth
yes,
to the truth.
there is truth to the truth. Okay, so that means then that some of the programming that you started to put into play is actually starting to bear fruit. There are a number of initiatives you've been doing, a multi-pronged approach to tackling it, both in the school, both in the community, with the family. We're on the ground and we're working. Tell me, for you right now, what are some of the measures rolled out that have been showing the greatest uptake?
All right, the first thing that we started with is actually our direct intervention program, and that is really going out there, touching, feeling persons. That includes a program we call Reasoning, and this is where we go into a different area every week and we go and talk to people directly. No cameras, no fanfare. We just gain and reason with people. This all linked into government's approach in making sure we keep in contact with the people. You have the rubbing shoulders, you have the parish speaks, and reasoning is just another element of that. The other one within the direct intervention program is having the community-based organizations and the NGOs really upping their ability to do the work that they do best, and that is being in the community every day. Every weekend, making sure that they are bringing back programs. You would remember that we would have had something called COVID, a pandemic, which really would have reversed a lot of gains we had in the community with having a lot of activities in the community. And we can't take for granted the powerful impact that those things will have. There are so many other programs, but those are the ones that I consider the short term, and short term is still where we are in terms of bringing out the heat on the street, but we're now moving on to the medium and long term programs now.
Okay, so what will be borne out in the medium to long term?
Okay, the medium to long term now is where we're looking at what we call the MTO, mind training opportunities. Now, one of the things we recognize is that it is not just to take persons who are at risk or high risk and just give them jobs or give them opportunities. We recognize that we have to make some mental shifts, some mind shifts, some mind adjustments in order for the change to be long term. So one of the programs we're having is the life coaching program, the parenting, adding to the parenting programs, the trauma programs in terms of looking at people's personal childhood trauma, also looking at our collective trauma, having the therapists and therapy, different types of therapy placed within the society, music therapy, art therapy, animal therapy, all pet therapy, all type of things we're having rolled out right now. Boxing as a specific program in relation to other things that we can do within the community that are a little bit more innovative, a little bit more active. So that's in order to dealing with the mind first. Then we have a lot of different training programs we're going to go to from there in terms of giving people employment training and so on, and then make sure we have the opportunities, economic and other ways, to ensure that people have something long term to do as well.
So we're not looking at a one-size-fits-all approach to this problem at all?
Not at all. We're doing scattershot, but very strategically so. We are going to saturate the society with positive things. Over the years coming up, even as a young person, even as an at-risk young person myself, I could remember, don't do drugs, put down the gun, those kind of things. And my thing then, still my thing now, is that when you tell me put down this, put down that, my hands empty. The devil find work for idle hands. So we have to put something in their hands, and we're going to put books in their hands. We're going to put balls in their hands. We're going to put opportunities in their hands to travel. We're going to put so many things. We can't just say what not to do. We want to provide the opportunity for things for them to do, to grow, to make themselves and to make Barbados a better place.
Okay, so that's on an engagement level, but there's some who cannot be engaged fully at this point because they might still be hooked on one substance or another. Where does rehabilitation come in to what you're doing to help stem the crime flow?
Correct. You just touched one of the major 3 planks. So we have prevention, we have rehabilitation, and we have enforcement, because we still have to look at enforcement as well. So in terms of our drug program, one of the things that my ministry has been looking at is how can we work closer with NCSA and also make sure that we re-energize the drug treatment court and ensure that we have proper drug intervention and counseling programs. I am not fully convinced that we are doing a really good job in relation to drug prevention, in terms of preventing people from getting on the substances in the first place, and then after they're hooked on the substances, the type of work. Yes, we have the Vernon House and the Substance Abuse Foundation, Marina House, and these various avenues. We have the psychiatric hospital as well, but all of them combined are not equal or greater than the problem that we have. So we're looking at how do we strengthen that to ensure, as you say, the persons that cannot be actively engaged, that we do have a plan for those persons, because they form a sizable portion of where some of this crime and violence and problems are coming from.
Okay, but you do know that some of these issues are cyclical. We're going around in a circle, because if you have to sell an illegal substance to survive, you will use it at some point in time.
Right. So that's why the programs we're looking at medium to long term are so comprehensive, because our statistics are showing us from the Criminal Justice Research and Planning Unit that 27% of persons in prison have reported that they did their crime for financial gain, which means that is about 73% that didn't. So one of the things you would recognize in Barbados, because of our wide social safety net and also because of the social economic situation of Barbados over the years and even now in the most difficult time, is that we have a issue with greed and not necessarily need. As I say, number of places you find people getting involved in crime because of poverty. A lot of times you will find that the way they're selling for $600 pair of shoes or to get to the next big show. They're not even selling it just because they need something to eat. So if we can address things like self-worth, and that's why I say the mindset is where we're going first, you can actually prevent those things altogether, as opposed to doing this patch quilt type of work, looking at drug treatment here, looking at this there. We have to look at it holistically. And if we can deal with the person holistically, we can deal with the family holistically, we can deal with the community holistically, then we believe that we can put a lot of these problems behind us, and we won't need to look at all of these things individualistic going down the road.
Okay, just to remind our viewers that you can feel free to call the minister at 228-5562, 228-5563, and ask your questions about stopping and preventing crime in Barbados. Now, tonight alone, Minister, I read a story about burglaries and an individual's property being cased, and unfortunately it is in a number of instances older folk. You know, Barbados is small. We tend to watch people quite often to see how they come and go and when would be the ideal time to try to get in. What more can be done in terms of enforcement and in terms of the said community? Because a number of them have neighborhood watches, but you know, what more can we do together?
Right. So we're in 2023, and one of the things we need to use is the technology. And let's look at it again comprehensively. When we think a lot about crime and violence, we think a lot about murders and homicides, but you're correct. Crime against the person and crime against property is also something that we need to look at. And a lot of these things, yes, in the long term, we're looking at nipping them in the bud. But what can we do? You touched on one, neighborhood watches. We don't have enough, and we don't have enough active ones. Just 2 Sundays ago, I was meeting with one in St. James, and I was very happy because the place was packed. But I'm thinking that all neighborhoods have to come back together as community, learn your neighbors, know who you are, and have at least some kind of technology app and platform that we can communicate in real time. The second thing is using the cameras, digital cameras, and real-time sonar technology that can communicate with the police and the community in real time. I've been exploring a lot of best practices, things that can actually, I don't know, some of them are strategic, some of them national security, can't talk about all, but there are things that we can install on the like poles and so on, besides cameras that can actually feed information back to law enforcement in real time. So apart from the prevention part, where we don't want burglars in the first place, we know that there's some time before we get to that kind of ideal and utopia. So we have to deploy more technology, more apps within the community, and ensure that everybody understands that this is everybody's issue. This is not an issue for the AG or for myself or the Prime Minister or the Commissioner of Police. This is every citizen of Barbados playing a part to rid Barbados of these different areas of crime.
And on that note, programs that are going to be helping to counsel parents and get them back to where they want to be. But don't you think maybe that sometimes one of the problems is that parents don't wish to parent, but wish to be on par with their kids? I mean, a lot of us
But
like to say, my daughter is my friend, my son is my friend. There's nothing wrong with having an open and honest relationship with your children, but I believe at some stage you have to understand who the breadwinner is.
Right. You're absolutely correct. And I'm going to be very honest with you. When I was asked to include parenting in my programs, I had actually planned to advocate for parenting as opposed to doing parenting programs because they said, oh Lord, another parenting workshop, what was the thing? But you raised something very important there. I believe that too far east is west. And I think a lot of parents operate in the way that you said because a lot of them would have been suppressed and they came up in a time of being seen and not heard and, facing very harsh measures. And now what they've done is they've tried to bring almost opposite to that. And they've gone from being very strict disciplinarians within our society to parents who don't discipline at all. And that also has some very, very, very serious impacts on our society. Now, why I'm happy that getting to be involved with some parenting programs is because I believe just what you say, that we can, within our parenting programs, we can offer that support, intervention, training, and so on with parent by parent, family by family. Because a lot of parents don't understand what you just said, Wendy. They think, oh, this is cool. Me and my friends are, they go with their children. You
A
understand?
caller
I think
quickly
that.
on the line, Minister, if we can just get them before we go to break.
Sure.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Go right ahead.
My question is the idea with the children. I find in recent times we are having children between the ages of 8 to 14, and you can see a lot of them around the streets during school time. Once before, they had this guy from education who used to come around and check the children. But the way you see these children now, too many children are out there riding bicycles and playing the fool and not going to school. And what are the authorities doing about it?
Okay, Minister, we'll just stick a pin here and let you answer that question as soon as we're back from the break. Yes, Minister Lane, truancy officers, that was the question before us before we went off.
But the caller is absolutely right. This is something been drawn to my attention a lot within recent years, not even recent months. Remember, they had this truancy officer in my time, used to call him Matlock. And when you hear Matlock coming, there's a certain healthy fear you had. But I think this goes back to why we are where we are today. I think we have acted, and it's something, a phenomenon that I was pointing to some time back, where we have this idea of the turtle parent. And that is like, you come up, you lay the eggs, and then you swim off. A lot of parents tell me, look, Corey, I got my own life to live. And in society, we've done the same thing. When you look at these videos with young people giving trouble, look at the adults in the vicinity. A lot of them, I'm minding my own business. They drink water, I mind my business. That is the type of attitude that we have at the community level, in the home level, at the parent level, and then now at certain societal levels. And the answer is really simple. We need to make sure that we have established truancy officers within the Ministry of Education. And I must say I've met with the ministry, and they're very, very cooperative in terms of how we're going to roll out some programs in partnership. But if that is something we have to discuss with the Ministry of Education, to make sure that we have those truancy officers in place to ensure that when we see these things, that they are reported and that they're treated to, but also that we have the different mechanisms within every level of society that tells a child you are a child, and it lets adults know that you are an adult, and you should be setting an example and pointing the child in the right direction. A lot of us think it is good enough to film or to just talk about it, pull it down, but we feel as though we are helpless observers in relation to raising our children. And I want to tell the society, no, each and every one of us have a responsible role to play in raising this society. The other point I want to insert here, which I think is very important, is that when you think about education reform, from what I have read, discussed, and learned about education reform, I believe that that will be a fundamental game changer, because when we change education and we make education more relevant, enjoyable, we will have less children playing truancy and running away from education and hiding, because the education will be more all-embracing, and I believe that people will be more apt to be going to go forward and going to school and learn.
Okay, we have another caller on the line.
Yes, good evening again. In response to what Minister just said, what about holding parents responsible or accountable for the children? Because children are still children. You can't punish children and go back to parents that will let them do it. So now parents have to be accountable. So let me hear how he would address that.
No, you're absolutely right once again, caller. Even if you look within my initiatives, one of my initiatives is parent accountability. Now, if you look at the age of criminal responsibility, I believe it's about 11 or so. From 11 and down, anything that child does, the parent is held responsible. But until you are 18, you cannot sign for yourself for many different things. So I believe from even 17 and down, that there are certain things that parents must be held accountable for. I'm happy to let the caller and let the Barbados know that these are some of the initiatives that I have placed within the Office of the Attorney General, and that they're looking at in terms of creating different policies and law to speak to them. So the caller and I, we are on the same page. The caller and the government is on the same page. We must hold parents accountable. But before we hold them accountable, we need to give them that support, that training, and have those kind of parent and family interventions as well.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. We have another caller on the line.
Good evening.
Yes, go right ahead, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, go right ahead.
Question to the minister. A couple of weeks ago, three perpetrators were set free because of witnesses being scared.
Okay, I'm not hearing him clearly. Let's continue,
You
Minister.
lost
Now,
that caller.
yeah. No, you were saying that communities also have to take some responsibility in this whole issue of truancy. Now, you know where you come from, and I know where I come from. And we all know, we both know, that should an adult that you don't like say anything to you about being on the streets when you should be at school, is one or two things. Either they're cursing you deadly on the spot, or they'll come at some other point in time and do either yourself or maybe a child within your household something in retaliation.
Wendy, I don't accept that, and that's how we got here with these kind of most of it is like kind of made up boogeyman thing. The whole thing, right, is that as an adult, and I've done it many times. I've seen other people do it, and I'm not telling people to put the self in danger. But the thing is for us to do our part, which is to speak to them. Now, even if they curse you, so what? No one ever curse you. Anybody curse you? What did it do to you? Did it make your light bill go up? You understand what I mean? But the fact is that you've done your part. And if more of us speak to these young people, it puts them in a kind of an uncomfortable position to get on the bus and go to school, or get out the bus shed from destroying the bus shed. But we cannot put our hands in the air, declare a surrender, and say, mash up the country, and think that it is fine. I think every adult listening has to understand you have some responsibilities. Speak to the children when they're doing something wrong. And if you are sufficiently fearful, at least report it to the authorities and let the authorities do their job. That's really the two options. The third option is a no-go. And that third option is to do nothing, or to just record it and go and talk about it in the salon or the barber shop. That is not on. I'm saying that everyone has that role to play.
Well, let's hope that more people hear about that role to play. Now okay, before we get to our next question from me, we have a caller on the line. Good evening.
Good evening.
Go right ahead.
What I would like to see Like, for instance, we saw in the news tonight where they show someone trying to break in someone's home. I think that if the police get a breakthrough on things like this, what they should do is to let the public know that they made a breakthrough. Not, you don't have to say who it is or what, but it gives the public a kind of confidence in the police, knowing that they're getting something done. Instead of you just see it and then you don't hear any more about it. And this is what bothers me, because I am a project of someone breaking in my house and stealing all my jewelry and never heard anything about it. 5 years gone. Never heard a thing about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, caller. Right, he's reporting that he had an unfortunate incident, and he wants to know, that lawmen are being much more proactive and keeping the public informed of what's going on.
Well, as you know, and I'm not making excuses for the service, but they're understaffed and overworked, and that goes back to my earlier point where we need to deploy technology. For instance, there can be a website that has real-time integrated information on all crimes, because crimes at the end of the day are very public unless they're ongoing investigations and they feel that some information may cause a bad effect on what may be happening in court. At the end of the day, though, the caller is right. A lot of the times we come to the public and we ask them for information and for help and so on, and then you get enough information, you go on, you don't come back and say anything. Not only is it discourteous, but it really cuts the communication flow between the public and law enforcement. So I believe that, again, going back to the call for proper websites and apps and platforms to make sure that this information is put out there. Just recently, they had this interview with Caribbean Crime Watch, I believe it is, with Tisha Hines on Good Morning Barbados, where a guy, just like in this case, picked up these images on his camera, and he went around to a different community. Some members of the community saw the same person, drew it to the police attention, and that person was arrested. So we are all in this together, and all of us need to communicate, and all of us need to participate if we are going to reduce crime in Barbados.
Okay, we have another caller on the line. Good evening, go ahead.
Hello, good evening. Mr. Lynn?
We're listening,
Yes,
go ahead
please.
with your question.
You hear me?
Yes, we are, go right ahead.
I believe that this issue is an issue of crime, starts from an issue of parenting. Okay, and it starts from the Bible values, and everything in my book, the Bible values, I stand by that strongly. And I believe that parenting has a lot to do with this. For the last many years, we've seen that there have been homes with just a mother and not a father. I believe no child, especially a boy child, can be brought up properly or trained properly when there's no father figure in the house. That is a Bible policy, at least stay by it. The problem we are facing that there was a time when women don't want to have men in the house. And it was done smart, and I don't know the reason why, but I think the problem is father figure. No mother can raise a boy child. I say that. And somebody is there to guide him with her.
I'm going to let you take this one, Corey. I'm not going to touch this one with my feminist self because I raised three on my own. The police has never been at my doorstep, so I'm going to let you take this one.
You sound like my mom. The thing is that there are some statistics, again, from the Criminal Justice Research and Planning Unit that shows that a major issue is fatherlessness, not only in prisons in Barbados, but across the world. I think it's ideal that we can have fathers in the home, and that is something ideally that we would like. But even notwithstanding that we must acknowledge that a lot of the female-headed homes have done pretty well to make sure that the large majority of society have never seen inside of a prison cell. And as you said, have raised pretty good men and women in this society. So I think that, again, we can encourage the family unit to be a strong one, but even if we don't have those cases, I believe that we can still do well. I think that that's all that needs to be said in that. Quite simple.
Okay, quite simple. And we'll leave it there. Now, looking at the issue of enforcement, you'd mentioned that the police force is undermanned. But there are some who will want to question you on that, because quite recently we've seen the successes of some of our enforcement officers in our neighboring Caribbean islands helping to arrest crime on their doorsteps. And you know, the question people are going to ask, if it's being done there, why not here?
But it is being done here. To say that they're on demand is not to say that they're not doing a fantastic job. If you look at our recovery rate, if you look at our solving rate, if you look at all these different things, some people will wonder if we are really on demand. I've heard numbers as high as 312 in terms of making up the complement of the Barbados Police Service that we would like to see. So I think that the two things are separate things. I believe that as we increase the force, that we will even see even greater success and more effective policing. So I think that what they're doing right now is some fantastic enforcement. If you look at the Operation Restore Order, it is a major part of why we feel the type of safety and security that we also feel for these last few months in Barbados as well. So kudos to the gals and guys of the Barbados Police Service.
I believe on the line. Good evening.
Good evening, madam. Good evening, minister. Yes, I would like to comment on this situation. I spoke to a youngster after school, right? And he told me that he missed the school bus, and if he get school late, he can get sent back home. I don't think that should be right. He should put on detention or something to send back home his child. I don't feel that they should be doing that.
The child didn't curse you, no? Yeah, but the serious point of this, we could get serious on this. I almost could tell you the school that child goes to, because these things are often reported. What I've set up is kind of a depository of information coming from all over in the society. A lot of work has gone in over these last few months in terms of crime prevention, making the connection, because when we talk about crime prevention, we got to talk about schools, because a lot of teachers will tell you, Wendy, that when they see certain students in the paper 5, 10, 15 years down the road, they could have told you. And if that is not an avenue for crime prevention, they don't know what is. And the caller is correct. A lot of the times they have a lot of issues that had to do again with the parents. And we're looking at the age of responsibility that the child is punished for. So a child gets to school late, and sometimes maybe the fault of the parent, but you can't punish a parent, so you punish the child. And he's talking about just sending home for being late. One of the things that have always concerned me is how we treat the suspensions and superannuations, or what we call expulsions. When you suspend a child, you send it home without supervision. Are you really punishing that child, or are you punishing society in slow motion? When you expel a child, and the child is supposed to be expelled at around 16 years or so, I've seen a lot of technical expulsions, because at 15 years, you send it home, it goes to the board, you tell it don't come back, and by the time you look to fight, it's 16, you say, oh well, you stay out the society. And these children go on to cause a lot of problems. I think it's 77%, I'll have to double check, don't quote me on this one, of persons at Her Majesty's Prison does were dropped out of school or were expelled from school. And so that's a startling statistic. So if you're looking at crime prevention again, we got to look at how to prevent those things. Again, with the education reform that I have confidence in that's coming, I believe that it will address those issues.
Okay, we'll take a break and then we'll return to our phone lines. If you're now joining us, remember, we're putting a handle on local crime. Let's join our caller on the line. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening.
Go right ahead.
Greetings to you, moderator, and Corey, right? This is not really for Corey directly, right? But it addresses how you get through to the police. This thing about 421 crime and all that. We came up under a number called 999. That's only one number, you know. I have heard that one number 3 times. St. Vincent got 555. Trinidad still got 999. I have heard persons who came in the media and say that things that happened. They were so frantic they couldn't remember the number. This 241 crime and police. We need to go back to this one number 999. Understand? One number 3 times. A lot of the country, the Caribbean still got it. Trinidad still got 999. We need to get back to this 7 numbers. A lot of people think that people are that literate, that people are kind of 428 police and crime and all that.
Okay, he's gone. He's just making an appeal for the number to change. I think that would probably have to be between yourself, the AG, the police force, and the phone providers. We have another caller on the line. Good evening and welcome to the People's Business.
Hi, good evening. Minister Corey, I believe you hit the nail on the head when you talked earlier about self-worth. I had the experience where I had 2 sons. One was on the higher spectrum in terms of the school system, and they used to emphasize a lot about education. They top notch in terms of education and whatnot. So when you go to when they had their sets and stuff, you would see they would put on the jeans and the t-shirt and don't feel no pressure, right? They just come and enjoy themselves and learn and whatnot. I had the other son though, he was on the other spectrum of the what we call the North Secondary School, and they used to put a lot of pressure on who got the brand name shoe, who got the brand name shirt, and some people don't want to come to the set because they ain't got the same brand name as the other persons and stuff like that. So I think in the education system, we should have an emphasis on self-worth, because if you put the emphasis in self-worth, then that person doesn't feel the pressure to comply to the pressures of dress code and stuff like that. And then they don't have the pressure then of trying to get these things if they can't afford them. So I think that is one of the key things that we need to focus on in relation to self-worth.
Thank you, ma'am.
Excellent and well said.
And she's correct, because the pressure to the children then take it home and put it onto the parents. And there are some parents who may not be working, but can think of other means to find things. And their means might be by depriving you and I of ours.
And the very important part of what she's talking about is this, right? So for years, we've heard people say that, poverty is not a social determinant of crime because they were poor and they didn't commit crime. Or some people will say it isn't anything to do with parenting because you have 2 children in the same household, the same parent, one turned out to be excellent, the other turned out to be a criminal. And what people don't understand is that self-worth and self-esteem is a major part of that. We all have different thresholds for pain. So we have different mental thresholds for the trauma and childhood trauma that we go through. And then we all have different levels of self-esteem and self-worth. So you can get the same training at home, the same love at home, but the self-worth that you have and you put on yourself is that major determinant of whether you go left or you go right, you go straight or you go backward. So she's the person who hit the nail on the head by raising that.
We have another call. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. And talking about self-worth and truancy and everything else, one of the things that was been in my head for a while, that we need to build a school, not a DAWS, but a school when children are having problems that they can go to, and at the school, their parents, along with them, can have counseling, and this is where self-worth will come in. Because sometimes we look at children as being bad, but sometimes they're hungry. Certain things are happening in their homes that they just can't deal with. And they need someone who can speak to them. And with this counseling, we can also, those who don't go to church, introduce the church to this as part of the counseling, or have church on that compound. So when you think about self-care, and then you will see that it's going to get better with the child and with the parents. Because some parents need parenting themselves. And we can help our children. But I honestly think we need some place to take these children. That's mine.
Corey, I believe we already have 2 such institutions.
It depends. So if you look at Government Industrial School and you look at the Eddie Nichols, you look at New Horizon, the call is almost peeping into cabinet, because we're looking at a diversionary school, which is more therapeutic, which is the part of bringing in the parents and counseling. I believe that would be in the nitty-gritty of the programming. But that's something that we actually need to do. And Wendy, let me put it this way. I think we got to complete the circle. Years ago, again, when the then Minister of Education, Mia Motley, she had a concern over children just being suspended and being left for the wolves of society, right? And I think it was her that would have implemented the Eddie Nichols Center. Now, the issue with that is that the Eddie Nichols Center's program is very structured. So you go through it over a 2-week period. And if you continue to go there, you're actually going through the same program. So it isn't effective if it wasn't effective on you on the first or the second time. So then we had the New Horizon School, which is a school you actually will go into and be in there full time. And then that had its own issues. So we're actually looking at a diversionary program before you get to prison that persons can actually go to. And it's not a punishment or anything, but it's about that therapy, is about that rehabilitation and so on, without having to be charged to go there. So I think that right now we are open to proposals for that. And I'm going to make an appeal here on national television. Any person who wants to add to the idea or submit a proposal to the office of the Attorney General for diversionary program or school or anything, submit. Because I think we got to stop with this. We have all the answers in a small bubble. And when we have these particular ideas or interventions, open it up to the whole society, from River Bay to East Point, to ask all Barbadians who want to be involved. And it's not about anybody teaching anybody idea or so on, because we all in this together. Anybody that has an idea and want to see Barbados be better in this particular area, send your ideas. Bring it forward. We will.
Where are they sending them to?
I will send it to the office of the Attorney General. I'll get the website and also get the. Actually, I'll give them the email address right now. They can send it to Akil Daly. That is AKIL.DALEY at barbados.gov.bb. That's the easiest way I can put it out there. You could probably drop it on the screen if we can before the end. Because these are the sort of things that we need to do. We can't just keep talking and talking and talking. I think let all ideas contend. Let all Barbadians with good brains, everybody got good brains, good ideas, add to the solution. Because if you're not a part of the solution, hey, you may be part of the problem. And we all want to be part of the solution. So again, Akil, AKIL.Daly, DALEY at barbados.gov.bb.
Asking about members of the public to contribute their ideas. You would have also done some exploratory trips looking at best fit situations in other countries and how they deal with their at-risk youth and dealing with deviancy and crime. What models impressed you most that you think you could apply here?
Definitely. Thank you very much. So in London, one of the things that they have already established is some after-school activities for a lot of the communities. And there's one in particular that I visited, and it has these different sections. So in Clarendon, one of the difficult neighborhoods, you go there, and I love bikes, but they have the bikes and they teach them how to repair them and so on. And on the weekend, they get to ride them. There's another part with a coffee shop. They learn how to press coffee, how to bake the coffee, how to make the coffee. And some of them have actually gotten jobs in those particular fields. So it's a multifaceted activity center again, to put things in the hands of young people, give them that skill, give them that sense of positive community, and then send them out in areas where then they can benefit from these types of things. Another one of the other things that I have seen in St. Kitts, and something I would like to see here, is where the criminal justice has a strategic council where they sit down ever so often, and they are able to, kind of problem solve and troubleshoot. And one of the reasons why I believe that that is so important is because as I've met with each of these agencies individually over the last few months, a lot of them would like to be able to share information with each other. A lot of them have difficulties with each other that I believe that if we can come together and discuss them, we can solve a lot of the problems. So there are a number of other ones, but really and truly, these exploratory trips are very, very important. Tomorrow I travel with the Prime Minister is leading a delegation to Trinidad, looking at crime and violence as a public health concern. And we have the AG, we have the, I think, Commissioner of Police, the head of the BDF, and also some top public health officials from the Ministry of Health. So that's another area that we are going to be looking at as well, as we try to be as comprehensive as possible to suppress this issue down to the ground once and for all.
Okay, now we have a caller on the line. I'm just going to take the question quickly. We'll go to break and then answer on our return. Caller?
Hello?
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I want to get across the teaching of Jesus Christ. Where God is concerned in ecclesiastes about training his children. Now he instructs us as parents to train the child the way he ought to grow. When he's old, he will not grow from it.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, we're going to take a break here, Minister, and be right back with some more comments, queries from the public. We'll be back in a bit. While the clock is ticking, let's go to this call quickly.
Hello?
Yes, good evening. Go right ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. I was just trying to make a little point here on the system for the young kids and things from leaving secondary school, going over to an institution that, like how I went to school at St. Leonard's, right? When I leave there, I had to go and learn a skill, regardless of the situation. I think something like that won't bring back. That all the kids that ain't do academically well should be able to go straight into the polytechnic. There should be priority first to go to the polytechnics and learn a skill. From at 15, 16, whatever time they leave school, they go straight there and learn some sort of skill. That way that they will be put in a work environment very early, and they will not stray away from it because kids is at that age you want to do something positive.
Okay. Now, what he's advocating is that they be sent straight into vocational training. But I believe that the Youth Advanced Corps offers options like this, Corey?
Right, because we definitely have to advance and expand our ability to take in more persons to train them in skills. One of the concerns that I think a lot of society has is that initially when we had the Polytechnic and we had skills training, it was for exactly that, persons who didn't do well in academic and was able to go into skills training. Some of these same organizations now actually require a higher level of academic achievement to get in. So it defeats the purpose. And I don't think we need to squash that, but what we need to do is expand the opportunity. So we have the Barbados Advanced, the Youth Advanced Core, which gone from 80 and is looking to upscale to about 200. We need to expand the skills training capacity around the island. And before we go to the next thing, I don't want us to overlook this idea of spiritual and religious faith-based teaching, right? In talking to a number of persons over the years, one of the things I've recognized is that a lot of them have not been able to make that change until they were able to move to what they call from darkness into light. Now, I'm not a very religious person or heavily religious, but very spiritual. And I believe that when we talk about root causes, the only thing greater is the seed beyond the root, right? And that is having that light and being able to connect with something greater than yourself. So that is something that is also included in some of the programs that we will be rolling out.
We're happy to hear that in terms of the programming, which is going to be coming on board shortly. Now, there was something else, right, that you were talking about when you were trying to encourage the people to, you know, give their views about the school. Is this being done with maybe an overall objective to being able to, say, cancel out the need for a DODS, a junior DODS in our society?
No, that is actually still on the table because we have to do prevention and so on. But remember, the whole idea of government industrial school is for those who are criminally charged. And we cannot put our heads in the sand and, you know, want to believe that they will not be those children that need to be treated to in a criminal sense. So basically, we will still have to have some type of institution or mechanism for children who break the law, go before the law court, and are found guilty. What we want to do is to make sure that that's as small as possible, and I think Barbados can sleep well tonight knowing that those numbers are extremely, extremely small. Those numbers over the years have been, you know, falsely high because we had things like wandering and so on, where we were punishing children in most cases for being abused. As soon as we addressed that, we saw numbers like 10 and 2 and 8 and 2 in terms of total boys and girls, and that number is extremely small for the last few months or whatever, right? So we're going to still have that. But I think the major thing is understanding that within every secondary school, even the ones that give more trouble than others, that there's a small number of children who really causing a lot of the problems. And if we can take them out, put them in a therapeutic institution with the idea and the thought process of reintegrating them back into the school system, that would be the ideal. And that is what that program is about.
Okay, well, we are happy to hear that something is coming to bring that change. We're going to take a break here, Corey, and when we come back, we'll have some parting shots on rustling crime to the ground. And we're back to the People's Business. We're winding down, putting a handle on local crime, a discussion on the many issues. Now, Minister Lane, when we put this handle on crime, we want to be able to open that door to a brighter and safer society. Hone in now on what are the key strategies that are in front of you that you are working on most assiduously to get it done.
First of all, Wendy, let me thank you for the opportunity to do so and to be able to have this conversation. Now, the strategy in the short term has been to do some direct intervention, go there, make sure that we can reduce the heat on the street, also nip a number of things in the bud, looking at small crimes to prevent bigger crimes. Then we're going mine training opportunities, so mine shift, training opportunities, and then economic opportunity long term. But I want to use this opportunity now in closing to highlight what has been the biggest challenge and to issue a challenge to all Barbadians to definitely together be a part of the solution. No longer can we just curse the darkness. I'm encouraging everyone to light an LED, and it's a lighter candle, but we can do it safe, right? My greatest challenge really is the wedge between what people see as the and the sophisticated people. Now, this year is 25 years I've been working immersed, and I'm not just talking about working a 9 to 5, but I've been immersed as an at-risk youth myself to now Minister for Crime Prevention, working on this 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 7 days a week, including Sundays. See you tomorrow. Now, what is the greatest challenge is that when I have to go to these sophisticated persons, I call them, and try to help them to get on board to assist with rehabilitation. You know, there's a spirit of unforgiveness in this Christian society. So persons coming out of prison they have a very high recidivism rate, sometimes up to 70%, because they're not given that second chance. Again, when I'm explaining to people why I'm doing what I'm doing, they think I'm shooting from my hip. I don't know what I'm talking about. But these things are things that I can speak to from my brain, from my heart, and from my soul, because I have lived this as an at-risk youth, and I have lived this for the last 25 years trying to turn the situation around. So for me, it's really how do we close that wedge and get everyone involved.
Well, here's hoping that the wider Barbadian society will be helping you to do it. You have law enforcement on your side, the counselors on your side, and we, the public, are being urged to also help to address this crime situation. It's our part. Everyone's on board. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, Minister Lane, on The People's Business, and for you, the public, for tuning in. This has been The People's Business. I'm Wendy Burke.